Imagine a king so cruel that simple execution bored him. In ancient Sicily, the tyrant Phalaris wanted a new toy. He wanted a device that would turn death into art. A man named Perillos arrived at the court. He was an artist and an engineer. He promised the king a creation that would make him legendary, terrifying, and forever remembered. Perillos unveiled a shining statue made of pure brass. It was a life-sized bull, polished and beautiful. But this was not a decoration. It was the cruelest oven ever built. The bull was hollow inside with a trapdoor on the side. The victim was locked in the belly. A fire was lit underneath, slowly roasting the human alive within the metal. But the heat was not the main feature. Perillos had installed complex musical pipes in the head. He wanted the victim's screams to be transformed into the sweet sound of music. He told the king that the pipes would make the dying man sound like a bellowing bull. It was designed to turn absolute agony into entertainment for the royal court. Phalaris stared at the beautiful machine. He was a monster who ate children, yet even he was disgusted. He looked at the artist and realized the man was pure evil. The king decided to test the machine immediately. He pretended to be interested in the acoustics. He asked Perillos to step inside and demonstrate exactly how the musical pipes worked. Blinded by his own pride, Perillos climbed into the brass belly. He wanted to show off his genius. He did not realize that he had just walked into his own grave. As soon as he was inside, the king locked the door. Phalaris gave the order to light the fire. The inventor was about to become the first victim of his invention. The guards piled wood beneath the brass stomach. As the flames licked the metal, the temperature inside began to rise rapidly. Perillos realized too late that this was not a drill. The darkness inside the bull turned into a suffocating oven. The brass, once cool to the touch, was now scorching his skin. He started to panic, pounding on the heavy metal walls, realizing no one was going to open the door. Outside, the king waited in silence. He wanted to hear the music. Suddenly, a low, mournful sound drifted from the bull's nostrils. It was not a scream. The complex system of tubes and stops distorted Perillos' frantic cries. To the crowd, it sounded exactly like an angry, bellowing bull. The technology worked perfectly. The horrifying screams of a dying man were converted into a soft, melodic tune for the king's pleasure. There is a dark irony here that history rarely sees. Perillos had spent months calculating the pitch of the screams. He had designed the tubes to handle the exact frequency of human agony. Now, he was the instrument providing the sound. He was suffering the exact fate he had planned for others. The artist was being consumed by his art, while the tyrant Phalaris sat back and enjoyed the twisted concert. Phalaris was known for his extreme cruelty, but this moment was different. He wasn't just killing an enemy. He was punishing arrogance. He felt that Perillos was even more wicked than himself for inventing such a device. As the bull began to glow red from the heat, the king listened intently. He marveled at the engineering. It was the most efficient and terrifying execution method the ancient world had ever seen. But the story takes another sharp turn. Just before Perillos died from the heat, Phalaris ordered the fire to be extinguished. He signaled his guards to open the hatch. Steam and the smell of burnt hair escaped the belly. They dragged the inventor out. Perillos was alive, but his skin was ruined. He fell to his knees, gasping for cool air, likely believing that the king had shown him mercy. Perillos looked up at the king, expecting a reward for his suffering. He thought the test was over, but Phalaris had one final cruelty in mind. He did not want the inventor to recover. He ordered his men to seize the burned man. They dragged him to the top of a steep hill overlooking the city. Without a word, they threw Perillos off the cliff, ending his life on the jagged rocks below. With the inventor dead, the Brazen Bull became the official execution device of Acoustics. It stood in the city center as a constant reminder of the king's power. Locals walked past it with dread, knowing that anyone could be next. The bull was not just a machine. It was a symbol of absolute fear. If you spoke against the king, you wouldn't just disappear. You would become part of the city's music. History is full of these dark inventions that reveal the worst side of human nature. We explore these forgotten nightmares every week. If you want to uncover more secrets from the ancient world that textbooks are afraid to teach you, please subscribe to the channel now. We are just getting started with this story, because the fate of the Brazen Bull did not end with the death of its creator. We often think of ancient Greece as the birthplace of democracy and philosophy. We think of white marble statues and wise men like Socrates, but the reality was much darker. The era of the tyrants was filled with blood. Rulers like Phalaris needed to instill terror to keep their power. The Brazen Bull was the ultimate tool of psychological warfare. It stripped the victim of their humanity before taking their life. Historical accounts mention another gruesome detail about the bull. Perillos had included herbs and spices inside the nose of the device. Why? Because burning human flesh has a very distinct and terrible smell. The inventor wanted to mask the stench of death with the scent of incense. This detail shows just how much thought went into making the torture pleasant for the audience, while being absolute hell for the victim inside. Imagine being inside. It is pitch black. The metal burns you wherever you touch it. You try to hold yourself in the center, but the air itself becomes too hot to breathe. Every breath scorches your lungs. You scream for help, but you know your voice is being twisted into animal noises. You are completely alone in your suffering, yet surrounded by a crowd of people who are enjoying the show. Phalaris ruled for 16 long years. During that time, the bull was rarely empty. He threw his political rivals inside. He threw suspected traitors inside. Legend says he even threw foreigners inside just to see if they sounded different. But cruelty has a limit. The people of Acoustics lived in terror, but terror eventually turns into rage. The tyrant pushed his people too far, and the day of reckoning was approaching. In the year 554 BC, a man named Telemachus led an uprising. The people had enough of the madness. They stormed the palace gates, overpowering the guards who had protected the monster for so long. Phalaris tried to escape, but he was cornered by the very citizens he had tortured. The mob did not want a quick execution. They looked at the king and then they looked at the bronze bull. There was only one punishment that fit the crime. The angry mob grabbed the tyrant. He struggled and begged, just as his victims had done for years. They dragged him to the center of the square. The heavy brass door was thrown open. Phalaris, the man who had ordered so many deaths inside the beast, was shoved into the darkness. The door was locked, and the fire was lit once again. For the first time, the people of Acoustics heard the king's voice through the pipes. The bull bellowed with the screams of the tyrant. It was a poetic end to a reign of terror. The device that Phalaris used to silence his enemies became the instrument of his own destruction. The crowd watched as the man who thought he was a god burned like a common criminal inside his toy. Some modern historians question if the bull truly existed or if it was later propaganda. However, the story was recorded by the poet Pindar, who lived less than a century later. Later Roman historians also described the device in detail. Whether it was purely fact or slightly exaggerated, the Brazen Bull became a permanent scar on history. It represented the moment when engineering and art were weaponized against the human body. The story of the bull did not end with Phalaris. Decades later, the Carthaginians invaded Sicily. They captured the city of Acoustics and took the Brazen Bull as a trophy of war. It was transported across the sea to Carthage. For centuries, it sat there as a relic of the past. It is chilling to think how many other victims might have been fed to the beast during those lost years. Years later, the Roman general Scipio Africanus destroyed Carthage. He found the ancient bull sitting in the ruins. Instead of destroying it, he returned it to the people of Acoustics. He told them it was a monument to their history, both good and bad. It is strange to think that this object of torture was preserved like a treasure. It shows our dark fascination with devices that cause pain and death. The Romans, known for their own brutal games, eventually made use of the bull. Historical records suggest that during the persecution of Christians, the device was brought out of retirement. Saint Eustace, a Roman general who converted to Christianity, was reportedly placed inside the bull along with his wife and children. The Emperor Hadrian ordered them to be roasted alive because they refused to worship the pagan gods of Rome. When we compare the Brazen Bull to other ancient tortures, it stands out for its theatricality. Crucifixion was public but slow. The Iron Maiden was brutal but hidden. The bull was unique because it engaged the audience's hearing. It forced the crowd to listen to the suffering in a way that dehumanized the victim, turned empathy into curiosity. It made the crowd complicit in the torture just by listening. Why are we so fascinated by this story today? Perhaps it is because the Brazen Bull represents the ultimate betrayal. Perillos was betrayed by his king. The king was betrayed by his people. The victims were betrayed by the artist who turned their screams into music. It is a perfect tragedy. It reminds us that intelligence without morality creates monsters. Technology can cure us, but it can also cook us. So where is the Brazen Bull today? Some say it was eventually thrown into the sea to wash away the sins attached to it. Others believe it was melted down to make weapons or coins. There is no physical evidence of the bull left in any museum. It exists only in our nightmares and historical texts. But the legacy of cruelty it left behind is still very much alive. We like to think we are more civilized than the ancient Greeks. We don't roast people in brass bowls anymore. But the concept of detached destruction still exists. We have invented buttons that can wipe out cities from miles away. We have built drones that kill without the pilot ever seeing the victim. The Brazen Bull was just the primitive version of distancing ourselves from the horrific reality of killing. Let's go back to Perillos for a moment. He was the villain, but he was also a victim of his own ambition. He teaches us a valuable lesson about the things we create. He built a machine designed to destroy others, never thinking it would turn on him. It is the classic story of Frankenstein. When you unleash a monster into the world, you cannot control who it eats. The Brazen Bull remains the most disturbing invention of the ancient world. It combined art, music, engineering, and death into one package. It showed us that the line between genius and madness is very thin. From the screams of the inventor to the roar of the tyrant, the bull consumed everyone who touched it. It is a story that warns us. Be careful what you build, for you might be trapped inside. The Brazen Bull was terrifying, but the Persians invented something even worse. Imagine being trapped between two boats, covered in milk and honey, and left to be eaten alive by insects for weeks. If you think roasting is bad, wait until you see what the boats did to the human body. Click this video right now to see the only torture method that makes the Brazen Bull look merciful.